Hi, welcome back to Space Thoughts. Today is my first quarter 2021 hot list, which goes over some of the hot items that I think are really critical in my space law and policy briefing letter, the Pressy, which came out on March 26th. So it's about a month after it's been put out, so I'm a little late. I usually do these 2 weeks after I put them out. But anyways, I'm going to go through what I think are the hot items from the Pressy, and at the end of it, if you aren't a subscriber to my briefing letter, I have an email address where you can contact me to actually get a free copy to look at it and see if you want to become a subscriber. What's hot? First quarter 2021. First thing up is HB 68 SB 252. Now this is a bill in the New Mexico legislature, and basically what this is their limited liability law for commercial space activities. The law was originally passed at one point and then renewed again in 2013, and it was set to expire this year. What this will do, it'll actually renew the law and actually renew it permanently. That's one of the highlights. In other words, the limited liability provisions, the disclosure requirements, everything within the Spaceflight Informed Consent Act is going to become permanent once this law is passed. So this is highly significant because this is one of the first domestic space laws that individual states have passed. So again, a milestone and worthy of the hot list. Space Policy Directives 6 and 7, which dealt with nuclear power sources and position and navigation and timing, or what we call GPS. These were the last two space policy directives that were put out by the Trump administration before it left office in January. And fundamentally, they go over they basically outline policy for nuclear power uses in outer space, and also for GPS as well. In other words, how to safeguard GPS policy towards actually making it more accurate and keeping it competitive in a world where more and more competitive GPS systems or PNT systems coming online, like Beto, like Galileo, and the Russian GLONASS. So these were the last two space policy directives that the Trump administration put out, and actually they're going to be the last space policy directives, period, because the Biden administration is taking a different tack with these with space policy. Executive Order 13972, promoting small modular reactors for national defense and space explorations. This is the last executive order of the Trump administration regarding space policy, and basically what it does, it directs the actual creation, demonstration of nuclear power sources for the moon, created for DoD, and even some capabilities for commercial space. And this actually tags on to a space policy directive that was put out last year. I think it was a space policy directive or executive order discussing the development of nuclear power sources and actually creating a system whereby licensing could occur even for commercial operators. So this is the last executive order of the Trump administration before it left office regarding space policy, and it deals specifically with modular reactors. In other words, we're going to start building them and we're going to start demonstrating them. FAA Streamline launch and reentry license requirements. We covered this in the Pressy in the fourth quarter issue, and basically these became effective March 21st. So in other words, this is and this actually goes through with, I believe it's Space Policy Directive 2 or Space Policy Directive 3, to actually streamline the licensing process for the FAA's licensing process. And they went through, they did that. In fact, we talked about that in the Pressy, I believe in the fourth quarter issue. And fundamentally, and this went into effect on March 21st. It was supposed to go into effect a little bit earlier, but the Biden administration wanted a 60-day hold on any new regulations put into effect because it wanted a chance to review them. So the idea of putting this off until March 21st gave the Biden administration that within that 60-day time frame. So again, this became effective March 21st of 2021. Kuniba test range granted a launch facility license. Australia passed back in 2018, I believe, they amended their Spaceflight Act to basically include licensing for commercial activities and including for spaceports. This is the first launch facility license granted to a private individual, and there was a company that was actually very involved in creating this site and getting a license for this site. So this is significant in the regards that for Australia, this is a first big jump into commercial space through the licensing of a facility, and I'm guessing with the ball rolling on now, it's really going to move forward quickly with licensing of commercial space activities and potentially other launch facilities being licensed. Interim National Security Strategic Guidance. This was issued by the Biden administration in January, shortly after it entered office, and fundamentally it just covers, it's a smorgasbord basically of very, very broad guidance, policy guidance directives, basically to give a rough idea of where the administration is going. There was a small section on space, basically dealt with sustainability, potentially getting back into the UN system as far as further, multilateral agreements go, and fundamentally, basically, very, very rough outline of where it's going to go in space policy. Again, not really sure where the Biden administration is going to go at this point, because really it is still too early, and there really hasn't been a lot of movement in this to really make a determination or to really analyze. But this document basically gave a very broad outline of the direction the Biden administration is probably going to take with space and other areas, not just space for that matter. Costa Rican Space Agency. The Costa Rican government passed a space law which creates their own space agency. And this is very interesting. This space agency is not really a federal agency, but it's more like a non-profit organization that is funded by that receives federal funds, not directly from the Costa Rican government, but through other government, from other federal agencies. For example, there are two agencies that are under this law are required to actually fund this. So the idea behind this Costa Rican Space Agency is it's not going to be funded directly by the Costa Rican government directly, but through other agencies. There's nothing about here in commercial space. Again, this is very basic for the Costa Rican government to actually, take a step out in the direction of outer space. Interesting in this point because Costa Rica is not a signatory to the Outer Space Treaty. Draft Humans and Space Policy for India. This is basically a directive for the Department of Space in India to outlining guidelines for basically human spaceflight. And there's been a lot of news about India wanting to actually have a manned spacecraft very soon. They want to become the third nation to actually have an indigenous human space program. So the idea behind this is basically to provide a draft for how the Indian government goes about that. In other words, it's basically saying, do it, and here are some guidelines that we want you to abide by when doing that. And these are some things we want to explore. So again, this is in a draft. At this point, I still think this is in a draft form, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be implemented very soon. And PRC, Russian Federation, Memorandum of Understanding on International Lunar Research Station. I talked about this on LinkedIn. I made some comments about this, and I talked about this really heavily in the first quarter 2021 issue of the Pressy. There's been a lot of, my opinion, a lot of knee-jerk reactions about this, and again, it's something to be concerned about in respect of seeing these two space powers actually cooperating, especially when it comes to the moon. But what I basically want people to understand is, yes, there is an angle of them cooperating, but this is also ties into what I call the three warfares: legal, political, and psychological. In that this whole idea of establishing a lunar research station is designed to affect the international legal environment with outer space, but also gain soft power in the community, in the global community, and also have a psychological effect on countries like the U.S., who is basically the adversary for all respects in this sense. Again, this is something I've encouraged my subscribers to watch, and I give a very good detailed analysis of my thoughts and concerns in here. But I always underline this the fact that the PRC and the Russian Federation, even though they're playing nice for the cameras right now, they are sizing each other up as well, and probably will eventually turn on each other. But right now, this is a convenient partnership. And again, while this is something that should be watched and there should be concern, this is something that really shouldn't be considered knee-jerk in terms of, we got to do something to counter this. That would probably be a bad response to this activity. So those are my highlights of the first quarter 2020. And again, 2021. And again, this is a very dense document. I think this one was almost 50 pages and such. If you're not a subscriber to the Pressy and you would like a free copy, I have an email there, info@thepressy.net, and I'll be glad to send you a copy. Now, what I will do is I'll send you the fourth quarter 2020 issue of the Pressy for you to look at, and if you decide to become a subscriber, then I will, once you pay the subscription fee, then I'll send you a copy of the first quarter 2020, and I'll also send you 2 special issues that I did back in February on the new national space policy enacted by the Trump administration, and some comments on the placement of spacecraft in orbit by both Mars and the People's Republic of China. I did a kind of analysis on that in a special issue. So if you become a subscriber, I'll not only get you started with the first quarter 2021, but I'll also send those 2 special issues along as well. So that's what I have for the first quarter 2021. What's hot, and I'm going to try and keep on doing this regularly, so I can keep up with each one. I'm not sure if I did one for the fourth quarter or not. But anyways, until next time, I will talk to you then.